Welcome to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. Okay, that sounded bad. I tried doing my best aggro metal professional wrestler voice, and I don't think it worked. But thank you for tuning in to the podcast. My name is Robert Scrobe. Today's show is going to feature Amer Arab. He is a product designer and certified Google Design Sprint Facilitator out in Istanbul, Turkey. I worked with Amer on the virtual design sprint we had in November, and he has the distinction of working on not one, but two virtual design sprints at the same time. Amer and I have a conversation about design sprints, where he's taking his company in 2019, and how design sprints could potentially work with music creation. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I'll see you on the other side. Amer, thank you very much for coming on the Dallas Design Sprints podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. I've never been interviewed before.
You've never been interviewed before?
Well, I've been interviewed for jobs, but never for, for my own personality.
Oh, okay. Well, it's long overdue, in my opinion, especially given our work together back in November on the virtual design sprint. I think it's long overdue. So you are currently a certified Google Design Sprint Facilitator and product designer, and you've been working at a lot of different companies there in Istanbul, whether it's been iGuide or events. I think you've also did a little bit with Zynga a long time back when you were doing in kind of the gaming field. I guess the first place to start off with is like, why design sprints for you? What's been the appeal about the process for you?
The appeal about the process was I kind of got into design sprint like a year ago when I was thinking of starting. I had like an app idea, and I was thinking of starting my own business. And then I was thinking, what's the best way to get the app into the market as fast as possible, as cheap as possible? And that's when I stumbled upon the design sprint and the idea of the design sprint. I never got to work on the app. I just got into the design sprint itself, and it decided that, okay, this is a great idea, and this is something that everyone here in Istanbul and Turkey needs to hear about. And that's how I got into it.
But in Turkey, I think we were commenting before, the design sprint process really isn't that well known. So what kind of plans do you have next year to kind of let people know about the process, the advantages to it? I know that you're interested in starting your own business. How do you plan on kind of positioning yourself there for what you do?
Right. So I've been asking on the AJ and Smart boards, for example, or the Facebook page. And the best advice that I was able to get was starting a meetup to introduce people to the process of the design sprint. Of course, you're familiar with the lightning decision jams and all that stuff. So maybe put on a demo, a lightning decision jam and all that stuff to bring people together and get the idea through. I've just started my own business. I'm working on the website right now. I'm designing my own website using Webflow. Thanks to Ran Siegel, I was able to learn from his masterclass, and now I'm working on the website, which is something we worked on together, the Webflow. I worked on the prototype for our virtual design sprint when we were working together.
Not just one prototype. You actually were part of two different coasts. That's something that I try to promote to the high hills, is that you weren't satisfied with just one engagement. You wanted to go with two. Yeah. And prove the hypothesis or go down the road of whether or not Webflow was like an ideal candidate to produce a prototype that you can move forward in a meaningful way with development. If I recall correctly, it was kind of like, yeah, you can, but you need to kind of structure it so that you're working on a specific part of it and not the whole thing.
I needed that deep dive. I really did, because not only Turkey and Istanbul has never heard of the design sprint. I only heard about it on the internet. I was never part of a design sprint. I was never on either side of a design sprint. So I really needed to immerse myself in 2, maybe even 3 if I were able to, but I needed some sleep. I needed to be part of as many design sprints as possible, because everything that I know is theoretical. I needed to see it on the ground. I need to see how it's done. I needed to see the magic with my own eyes.
Right, and be able to have that first person experience of how it's actually applied.
Exactly, especially working with amazing facilitators like Sabrina, like Fabrizio, with David Hall, you as well, working with you at some point. It was amazing. It was a great experience, and I've learned so much in that week, more than I've ever learned in a year. Once you put yourself in practice, when you put yourself through the process of the design sprint, that's how you learn best.
So if we're going to be doing that again in April, so we're doing another virtual design sprint and I'm just started kind of figuring out what the structure is going to be like. If you wanted to put your hat in the ring and say, okay, here's what, if I were to be part of that next engagement, this is what would be amazing, or this is what you really like to see, what would you want, what do you envision April being like for you?
I would envision, if we are working and we are working for free, probably, then we might as well do it for a cause, like do it for a non-profit organization, do it to help the people, the community, something for the good of the people. That's the only thing that I envision. If we worked with a non-profit, and there are a lot of non-profits who would appreciate this service, probably.
Do you think that should be the default? Meaning that
and maybe I would want to also be a facilitator. I want to try and become a facilitator.
Okay, because I've been toying with the notion that, excuse me, it could be a blend of nonprofit work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate getting paid for this week. It is a whole week of work, and it's a lot of it's a hard work as well. It's not easy.
You have the nonprofit thread, then you have one where it's funded, but I don't know what that would look like, because usually when you mix money into things, it may muddy the waters a bit in terms of expectations, but there were inquiries last time around that. The other is an experimental track where someone like David Hall or David Todd, the two Davids, essentially could take something that they're thinking about with a process and mix it in in David Todd's case, with personal coaching or personal branding. And it doesn't have to be a full week. It could be basically like a half day, where the notion is that they try it out, they're part of the event, and then they broadcast or publish what their findings were in terms of taking some aspect of either a design sprint or a lightning decision jam and incorporate it into what they do. Because I think, to your point earlier, it's selling and telling is one aspect of this, where you're trying to showcase what the process can do, but it's also having that first person experience of actually being able to apply it. So it sounds like the nonprofit angle of this could be something where and here's where I'll bridge a little bit. Right now, there is still a design sprint going on from that November week that is benefiting an Austin charity. It was the natural disaster or the disaster response one that was going on with Lee Duncan. That one is still happening, and they're actually looking at getting funding for the app that they're doing, because there's a high interest in it. Because of the staying power of that particular endeavor, I wonder if that's just the norm. Like that's the sounding off point, where the nonprofit is the default, and then the experimental pay track is like another thing that you could do, but that's the way to basically go about the April event.
Right. I mean, also this can be a proof of concept of the design sprint. When you are producing such amazing apps or services, where you're helping nonprofit services and producing something that is valuable, that is a proof of concept. When people hear that, oh wow, you did this through a design sprint and you helped that many people, that would be a great, service for the design sprint community, I guess. The thing that I was thinking about also was mentoring people through virtual design sprint, as you mentioned earlier. I think New Haircut do that kind of. They do kind of a virtual design sprint tutoring online.
Mhm.
So I can see people wanting to be part of that. The thing that I'm sure that will benefit the design sprint, the virtual design sprint, is if you're getting paid, you'll be more committed. That was the problem that we had. People had other commitments.
Yes.
Whereas if you are getting paid, then you will just clear that week.
It's going to have to be a conversation with the business side of the house to understand why someone would put the money into it. It's also a proof of concept around the referral network. If you have a company that's willing to put a certain amount of money into something where they're going to, one person has the business relationship, but can use a referral network to get resources for that contract or that opportunity. What does that look like? Because if it's similar to most placement services where there's a fee involved and you just get a bunch of people to work on a project, and it's that business model. However, if it's something where it's supposed to be like Skunkworks Innovation and it goes that route, that's something else. But there is interest in it. What it boils down to, or what it comes across as, is another issue. I remember asking the question of what would be the dollar amount to get your attention for the full week. What would be the price you do expect? And I got a wide range, but I found that the folks that were the most educated or the most experienced probably gave some fairly accurate numbers in regards to their time. Whereas if someone was maybe with 5 to 10, really just wanted to bank, wanted to basically get the money, there would be a different answer altogether. But again, it's exploring that space to see what the possibilities are.
Right. Like I'm probably one of the people who have no idea what to charge. I'm still trying to figure this out, especially here in Turkey. I keep hearing the numbers in the US. I'm like, I can't even charge people even quarter of that amount of money here in Turkey.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but well, like we discussed, if there was a standard set on either the euro or the US dollar currency, and it paid that amount no matter where the resource was, if the quality of the work was up to a certain speed, then you have something very appealing that I've heard other people use where
but can you ensure the quality though?
That's the thing, is that you would have to go by the merit. You wouldn't have to necessarily go by what people have in their Behance portfolio or what they have in their cover letter. You actually have the experience that they have with someone else working on a design sprint. And also, if that referral network is in place, it's based on trust. So it's going to be someone that if they're referred to you, or if you're referred by someone else, it's because they have direct experience with what you do. They know who you are. There's a certain trust level involved, and that they feel that you're the best person for the job, given either the vertical or the ability to produce something that the client is asking for.
Right. How is that referral network going, by the way? You're still working on that, I think.
I'm about to publish an article tomorrow on the core concept, and then I'm going to start. I'm going to go down the route of someone that I want to look him up real fast because this is the second time today I've mentioned him. There's a guy that did Fathom Analytics, and he basically, the Fathom Analytics was started because he basically made a tweet about it and said, here's my idea for a business. Basically, it does simple, useful website stats without tracking or storing personal data of your users. So that was his original thought. And then what he did is he basically concentrated on the user experience, the interfaces, the different panels that people would see, and he didn't have any code behind it. He just basically started creating them and got a lot of feedback. Now, granted, he had a large audience, but I'm thinking about doing the exact same thing where I'm going to go, okay, here's the concept. And I know there's interest from the core group that we worked with in November, but I start putting this out in some of the places where I have some traction. If I start getting responses or beyond likes and just getting comments and asking about what particular things, and I keep it very low fidelity, I got a feeling that I'll know what is valuable to the market versus what I think would work. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it's going. It's going. But the first part is the article to crystallize the findings from the event in November, and then to kind of, bridge that, some of the thoughts I had about moving it forward.
Right.
But yeah, it's in play. So with the design sprint process for you, you come from a field where doing project and product management.
Right.
When you were in that space, how did the bridge to design sprints work? What was the main appeal about the process?
Well,
Beyond
I
your initial interest of developing an application
right
was.
when I was working as a product manager, as I told you, I had no idea what a design sprint. I didn't even know even design thinking was really new in Turkey. I haven't met anyone who knew. Our UX designers did not depend on design thinking methodology at all. We're really back behind the US or Europe when it comes to designing products. And so I was focused on Scrum, 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 Scrum. I was learning Scrum, breathing Scrum, eating Scrum, everything Scrum.
I
Um,
heard it's fairly dry.
oh, it's really boring process. It's amazingly boring process, very dry. And that's why I think it was difficult to get the development team on board, or it requires a lot of effort to get the development team on board because they didn't really feel that they were part of the process. Now there's a light bulb in my head. It's like, oh damn, I wish I knew design thinking back then because I would have made them help me with the how my tweeze questions, with the lightning demos. Like our designer had a lot of workload from because the designer worked with multiple teams, and so we would have to wait on the designer to even design like concepts. But with the lightning demos, anyone can start designing. We could have worked on designing the product or the features that we wanted to work on without the help of the designer, or we can just send the concepts to the designer and he just could fix them, or even tell us what was wrong or what would be done better, and we would learn with time. Now I'm looking at all those things that I know because of the design sprint, and I'm thinking that would have made my product management life so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to find a job again as a product manager, but just so I can apply those concepts. Unfortunately, I'm focused now on the agency, the design sprint agency.
Well, you have that, at least you have that approach to the work that probably would benefit you in multiple ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when it came to understanding how to structure an engagement and
Mm-hmm.
what a business or a client might want.
Right. Yeah.
For the most part, it's something that you may need someone else that's better at some aspect of the agency to kind of work with you on, rather than you thinking you have to take on everything. But
the thing also that I regret not knowing about is the prototyping concept, for example.
Mm-hmm.
In a Scrum, you have, you release often, and test as soon as possible, but there is still development involved. There is still 1 or 2 weeks of development involved, and then you release. Had I known about the prototyping and all those prototyping, like high fidelity prototyping applications back then, that would have made my life so much easier as well, and we would have saved so much money, and our products would have been way more successful as well.
Yeah, in hindsight's 2022.
Yes.
I mean, I wish I could have gone about evangelizing design sprints in the enterprise a different way than I did, but that's okay. I've come to a point now where I knew it would have required a lot more coordination and political support than I had to basically put it across the finish line. But
right.
That now I kind of know why or how I can market myself in a way that's appealing to the kind of audience I'm after, which is my next question for you with your new business. Well, let me ask you this. Are you familiar with Jonathan Stark and some of the stuff that he has with the Business of Authority and other content that he has?
No, I don't. No,
okay.
I'm not.
So there's a number of people, like you were saying, with Christo and Adrian Smart and other folks that are kind of leading this space around, solopreneurs and understanding design and being able to position yourself and taking the design sprint process and utilizing it. Jonathan Stark is another person that's in that mix. And the reason why I find him so appealing
is because he was the first person to say, don't look at things from a broad brush, really try to narrow your focus. And it's counterintuitive, but once you narrow your focus, your marketing becomes easier. You know what kind of audience you're after, and you can go as deep as you want. And if you find that you're getting too deep, you can always pull back a little. But his argument is that if you know that you are a design sprint facilitator in Turkey and no one else is playing in this space, how can you? And if you don't know your customer yet, then that's another journey altogether. But if you can frame the messaging in such a way so that I'm Amer, I do this, and these are the problems that I solve, and this is the value I bring. Depending on how you consume information, I would suggest starting with this podcast. It's just called The Business of Authority. But listen to the first 5 episodes outside of the interviews he does. There are a couple of interviews that are a little too they're a little too, he licks the boots a bit about too much about people he admires, and it's a little too, it feels a little too salesy. But if you go after some of the ones where he's talking with his co-host about the foundations of how he kind of positions his business, like the 3 whys, like why this, why me, why now, and also with being able to speak to how to basically get a really ironclad positioning statement that defines what you do and what your business is about. I think especially for you in Turkey, that could really benefit you. But again, it's called The Business of Authority by Jonathan Stark. Check out the podcast first. I think he also did an interview on Chris Stowe's The Future that summarizes a lot of his tenets very well. That may be a good starting point. And what I'll do is I'll put them in the show notes, but I can also send you a link that I know would be a good primer.
Yeah, please. That sounds amazing. Thank you very much. I can see, when you start with a new product, when you want to design a service to any customer, you have to start with empathy. And I can see myself when I didn't hear, the reason why I was fascinated by the design sprint is that I had a need. The need was getting my product to the market as fast as possible, as cheap as possible. And I need to, I guess, look for my customers who are probably in the same criteria. Someone who is looking for something like the design, they don't know that they're looking for the design sprint yet, but when they see it, when they read about it, they'll be like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like exactly what happened to me. That's why it's taken me quite some time actually to just release my website, because I want my message to be clear, my message to have empathy to people who are looking to start their own business or to solve their own problems when they don't know what a design sprint is. I don't want the first thing to be, we do design sprints. Like, oh, what the hell is a design sprint? So it has to be something else, something that will keep them to read about the design sprint first.
I would argue that I don't think it's about the design sprint at all, to be honest. I think that most people are just looking to solve a problem.
Exactly.
They just have, the only thing that they're fixated on is what is currently holding them back, or what their problem is. Like, think of, like, you're just moved into a new house, and let's hypothetically say, though I don't wish this upon you, Amer, I never would.
No, yeah.
There are some foundation issues, and there's, at this point, you really can't go back and redo the sale. It's something that you just need to deal with. So you don't have no interest in understanding the process of figuring out how to figure out if it's a real severe foundation issue, or if it's just a crack, or if it's a minor thing, or the process of fixing it. You just basically want the problem solved, and you want it solved by the person who knows the best at a reasonable price. So essentially, that person that comes to you is going to say, look, I've been doing this for X amount of years. This would be my overall approach. They want to know why you're doing it now, like what's the situation. And you're going to try to pick the best out of like 3 or 4 contractors to get it done. But in no way are you interested in figuring out how they go about solving the problem. They'll make you an overview of what they've done, but the process is really up to them, and you don't have any interest in it.
Exactly. So for all they care about, I could be using magic.
Right. So for you, they want to have, it's kind of like they want to establish a trusting relationship with you. They want to get to know who you are. similar to how my impressions are with you of the virtual design sprint, there are certain things that come to mind that I can put descriptors on, such as your professionalism in that event came out to me because not because you did double duty on two different things, but that you were one of those foundational members of the team that kept it going, that you were someone that facilitated communication, that you were someone that went ahead and did the design work, that spoke up when there was an issue around scope or not having proper process, and getting that impression based on what you've done. And I think that says more for what you bring to the table from a professional standpoint than actually any process that you have. Because let's say design sprints, for whatever reason, die out in 2019 and growth design becomes the new fad or becomes the new thing that people want to hire for. It makes people scramble to kind of orient themselves towards growth, which is analytics and other aspects of things. But for you, if you keep your focus on the relationship and the value that you provide, no matter what kind of solution you bring together, that relationship is going to be a much more longer term prospect that you can bank on than just basically orienting yourself towards any particular process.
That is really great advice. Thank you so much, Robert.
Well, I apologize because I don't want to feel like I'm standing on a soapbox, but I only want to tell you this stuff because I have this weird investment in people to succeed if I've worked with them before, and I know you have a lot of promise. So I think between the Jonathan Stark thing and just kind of understanding what the real value you bring, I think all you really need is more proof of concepts in the next 2 quarters. Like just the opportunity for you to showcase what you can do, whether those are self-driven projects or client-facing ones, whether you're actually paid to do the work. Just as long as you showcase what you can do, I think it's just going to follow suit.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think. And I've been talking to this incubator, and they want a proof of concept as well. And they have this problem that they want to solve, is that they have all these startups. I think they have 25 or 30 startups that in this incubator. And those who are in the startups are people of different ages and different technical backgrounds. So they want to create kind of an onboarding process for them to teach them the tools that they will be using during the time while they are in the incubator. So they want me to help them as a proof of concept, but for free, do a design sprint with them to design their onboarding process. But then once I do that, and if it proves that the concept is valid, then I will have 25 to 30 startups to work on. So I'm working really hard on that project right now. I'm like sending them back and forth messages every day, going to meetings every couple of days to talk to them about it, and trying to set up this design sprint. But it's difficult to get them all in one room for two days, even 2 days.
Also consider that you may not necessarily need them as a middleman at some point. That if you find that you start to understand the vertical of startups in a way that you didn't before, because this will be a learning experience for you, there's nothing to say that your messaging, you basically go, look, I understand what startups go through, and I understand how money is tight, or that some of you have a very intense need to be quick to market and do that proper product market fit. Being able to have those kinds of conversations outside of this project going forward could be meaningful for you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think while we still have time, I do want to touch on your hobby, which is music, because offline, we did talk a little bit about both of our backgrounds with it. But tell me a little bit about what you're currently doing, like as a hobby with music now. Are you currently in a band? Are you producing music? What are you doing with your spare time in that?
What do I do in my spare time? What I do in my spare time is that I get paid in drinks and beer and whiskey to yell and shout at people, and they love it. I'm a singer in a metal band, and I just scream my heart out for 2 hours on weekends, and it's amazing. It's a great way to let it all out, all the stress and all the work that you had, all the hard work you had during the week. It's amazing.
Would you say,
That's what I do. And we're a cover band. I have absolutely no desire to become a professional singer in any way. It's also a lot of work. If you think working in a startup is hard, try and become a professional singer for a metal band. Like, these guys go on tour year round, and it's a lot of hard work and a sleepless night. So no, I have absolutely no intention of doing that. I just like what I'm doing, getting paid in beers.
So it's cathartic in a way. It's a way of just basically releasing all of that. Then by Sunday, do you just basically immerse yourself in a hot tub or just basically on a bed and just like lie still for a bit to get still and then start your week again?
Yes, exactly. It's a fantastic release, and great energy, seeing the people running around, moshing around and jumping off stage and all the stage diving. It's amazing fun also. That's the whole idea behind it. It's just a way to release the stress, and also it's a good workout.
So have you ever thought about doing a design sprint for your hobby, music hobby, where you use this process to create some original music?
Oh wow, okay, interesting. How would that work?
Well, you want to start at the end and you figure out, okay, what do you want this song to be about? What do you want? How do you want to feel at the end of it in terms of after you produce it? Then the map could be something where it's pretty straightforward. You have band at one side, song on the other, and then you figure out like the map could be basically the sequences of it. There's the opening riff, there's the main piece, then there's the first bridge, then there's a second piece and a second bridge. And you basically map out how you overall see the song. And then when they ask the experts, could be something where you ask people, other songwriters, other people that do songwriting for a living that you know on the internet, or that you meet or reach out to, and do some quick interviews around how they construct their music, how their approach is. And then what you do is you target one particular part of the song that you want to, or one particular song, or one aspect of the song you really want to kind of explore and do some music towards as a starter. Then the sketching could basically, you can replace that with guitar or with drums, and each person in the band tries a different piece of the song. Like they think, okay, this particular bar would be really great on bass, or this drum beat seems like it would be perfect for the theme that we have for the song. And then on the side, you start to figure out based on everyone's songs what seems to fit together well. You don't necessarily vote. I'd say you instead of dot voting, you can use like alcohol in some way. So that you put your shot glasses down on the one that on the bars of the things that you really like. The storyboard is basically where you start grafting out the notes and you write out all the things in like a sheet, kind of like you would if you were going to put all the notes and things. And the type is you go through sessions, like you'll basically do recording sessions and you try those out. And when you test it, you're actually going to test it with 5 people or like a small audience that you bring in together, or the test can be actually in the bar. And you go, we got some new stuff. You tell us what you think. And then what you do is after it's all said and done, whether you're drunk or otherwise, you have to come back to us and tell us what you thought. 80% of people may say, this sucks, you're crazy, blah, blah. But you may get a couple of people that may want to say, beyond saying it's cool, kind of go, I like that part that was this. And you do that once a month, and you could start producing things like for Musically, for other things where you just kind of put like studio work out there, and it could just be like small 30-second kind of riffs. And it's not so much that you're trying to get the attention of other people, but what you're doing is you're being historically correct. You are essentially putting on there and recording when you were together as a band, because your life may move forward in a way where you don't have this luxury anymore, where this is only going to be a phase in your life where you're not going to be 65 years old with a beer gut and with like a long beard and doing like, doing riffs from like White Zombie or from like other bands. You'll have moved on. But this is a way of kind of chronicling this era in your life. So if you wanted to apply the design sprint process to like creating songs or creating like whole like experiences on stage, that would be one hell of a story you could tell, not only people that you know, but also to basically go, okay, well, if you're interested in how this process works, let me show you how it works in music. And it could be an interesting entry into talking to clients about how the process works in other industries.
That is a very interesting idea. I'm not sure if I will be able to follow through or if my band members would be on board. They like it more the old school way. You get drunk and you play the riffs and you scream and you see how it works at the end and what someone would forget to record and all that stuff.
That's true. But you never
yeah.
know unless you have the conversation, and you don't need to necessarily show them like that the blue book, because they'll probably look at you like you're an alien. But it could be where if you do a certain exercise, they may follow suit. So if it's like monkey see, monkey do. If you see you're doing something in particular that speaks to a process or speaks to something, they may ask what the hell are you doing, Amer? And then you can basically explain. It's like I'm trying this out. And you may find that they bring their own kind of approach to it or try something different.
You know what? I'm gonna talk to them about it. I'm gonna tell them exactly what you told me and explain the process to them exactly like you said.
You can even make it
interesting. You know, it sounds really interesting. It sounds like it's doable.
And plus, if you mix your love of alcohol with the process, you could probably put in something where you could say, okay, whoever has the best sketch, they get a shot, or something else. And then you would have to probably get a sponsor to basically sponsor your design sprint so that there's the flowing of alcohol throughout, but it's totally up to you. I'm not going to get involved with that. That would be your choice. So
the sprint material would be Post-its, pens, and puke buckets.
You would just have a different set of deliverables and a different set of supplies. So instead of Sharpies, it could be like, whatever you'd like. Oh, you know what you could do? Instead of dot voting, you can use guitar picks. And basically, like put gum or spit or something else, and like stick the guitar pick on something you like, and do it that way.
Okay, that is something that I will definitely keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be the full week. It could be like 2 or 3 days. It could be like something small. It could be like one day where all of you are just bring everybody in for pizza. Like order a free pizza or whatever. Like some really tasty food out in Istanbul that everyone likes, and just put it in the center of the plate. And you're fixated there because they're eating all that, and then you kind of go into it, and then they're a captive audience.
I mean, there's nothing I would lose except that I would get punched and kicked, and then they would be like, get on stage and just sing.
Maybe. You never know where it could go.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's definitely, it's interesting how flexible the design sprint is. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I would definitely like to see it mix in with your hobby if you can get it to work. But if not, no love lost. It's business as usual.
Yeah.
So if we were to look back, and both of us were talking at the same time next year in 2019 in December, and you look back at 2019, what to you would be a good year, and what for you would be an amazing year? What things would have happened?
A good year would be, I would have at least a couple of clients, maybe 3 clients even. Where I've had at least like 2 or 3 design sprints, paid design sprints, not free ones. And then the name is out and the idea of the design sprint would be out. An excellent year would be, I would be working in the States. I'm actually in the middle of an immigration process to the States right now. Yeah, because my wife is American. And so an excellent year would be, by the end of the summer of 2019, we would be settled somewhere in Austin, maybe.
That'd be a nice place for you, I think.
Yeah.
There's a nice local band scene that goes around there.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be, and continuing my business or design sprint, I would have already built an experience, had like multiple sprints experience, and then I would continue in Austin, for example. That would be an excellent year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Amer, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast, and hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. You have a great week as well.
I will definitely have that. I hope it will. It'll be good. It'll be fine. All right. See you, Amer.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. If you have a question or a comment, we want to hear from you. Send an email to robert@dallasdesignsprints.com before I morph into a London accent. You can also find us on Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Have yourself a wonderful day. Why did I turn into a pirate? Oh!